There are two primary auction venues on the planet where you are almost certain to see motorcycles you won't see anywhere else, and where it always seems possible to find a diamond in the rough: Las Vegas in January, and Staffordshire County Showground each autumn and spring when Bonham's holds its twice-yearly Stafford sale. This year the autumn Stafford sale seemed more eccentric than normal, with some extraordinary racing motorcycles selling for not very much, some bikes that won world championships selling for chump change, and at the other end of the scale, several of the most expensive two-stroke motorcycles ever sold at auction. Motorcycle pricing at auction at the moment seems very inconsistent, and there were dozens of bikes that had been fully restored yet sold for less than $15,000, bikes in some cases that were as good as when they were new, selling for the same price as a 2017 commuter motorcycle. Here's our pick of some of the most ridiculous prices seen at Stafford this year. 2003 BMW R1200CL. BMW's attempt to build an American cruiser model. The R1200C has a fuel-injected 8-valve engine driving a 6-speed gearbox with BMW's telelever front suspension and a traditional monolever rear end. Throw in a fairing, cruise control, footboards, 2 electrical power sockets, heated grips and seats, panniers, and a top box with integral passenger backrest and tabs. Remarkable value. Auction description: 1947 Moto Guzzi 498cc Super Alce. AWW2 Moto Guzzi 498cc Super Alce, built for the Italian Armed Forces. Reliable, interchangeable wheels, great ground clearance, and heaps of character. So successful in its role that it remained in continuous production for more than 2 decades, finally being phased out in 1958. Auction description: 1929 Scott 596cc TT replica, the first two-stroke to enjoy any notable racing success. This 600cc parallel twin is 88 years of age and appears to have been regularly used until just a decade ago. Reading the auction notes, it obviously has a few mismatched bits, but the frame and motor are original and most of the bits appear close to being right. At the price, a bargain. Auction description: 1960 Scott 596cc Flying Squirrel. Same story as the previous bike, though built some 30 years later as part of the last few hundred Birmingham Scotts. In remarkably good condition and very collectible. Auction description: 1959 Velocette 499cc Venheim. The auction description says it perfectly produced until the end of Velocette production in 1971. The Venom represents the final glorious flowering of the traditional British sports single. A motorcycle in original condition that has been used until very recently. Exceptional quality for a very reasonable price point. 1982 Kawasaki Z1300. Kawasaki's Behemoth 6 was a great motorcycle, being rare and reliable at the same time. This one has just had an expensive, comprehensive and careful rebuild and is a collectible motorcycle capable of transporting you down an autobahn without being passed. Can't believe the price. I have fond memories of testing one of these new, though it really is huge and you can easily get into trouble just riding it around at walking pace. Auction description: 1975 Norn 850 Commando Interstate Mk3, the final and most civilized version of the Norn Commando with the 828cc engine, electric start and aftermarket panniers. I owned one of these new and it was horrifically unreliable, though a joy when it was running sweetly. It seems in excellent condition, no doubt the bugs are all sorted after 4 decades, and was well bought at £6,900. Auction description: 1981 BMW Magni 980cc. Arturo Magni was the head of the MV Agusta competition department, and he oversaw all of those famous victories by Halewood, Abbiali, Reed, Surtees, Agostini et al., before setting up his own company to produce motorcycles once MV Agusta closed. This is a Magni BMW with 134 miles from new. Less than 150 BMW Magnus were manufactured. Genuine aristocratic quality at a sub $10,000, very proletarian price. Auction description: 1947 Velocette 349cc KSS, a very original 70-year-old motorcycle that was one of the final Velocette KSS models produced. Given that the KSS began production in 1925, and changed little during its run, this is another one of those discount vintage bikes that make collecting worthwhile. $10,000 for an original example of a bike that built the Velocette name again seems very accessible. Auction description: 1933 Matchless 394cc Silver Arrow. We featured one of these technologically fascinating narrow-angle V-twins in the Motor Classica report earlier this week. The Matchless Silver Arrow might have become one of the true gems of English motorcycles if it hadn't been launched at the same time as the 1929 stock market crash. The narrow-angle 18-degree V-twin 400 only lasted a few years before it was retired from the range, but its smooth, sweet-running motor remains a gem to this day. Less than 2,000 were produced and given the price. Auction description: 1968 Speedway World Championship Final winning 1968 Jawa ESO Speedway Racing Motorcycle. This bike won the 1968 World Speedway Championship Final in 1968 in the hands of Speedway legend Ivan Mager. That is, someone bought a World Championship bike for $12 grand. Astonishing, really. Cheaper than a lot of man cave furnishings. Auction description: 1971 Long Track World Final Racing Motorcycle. This bike blew up in one of the heats but was swapped out for another that enabled Ivan Mager to win the title. It still participated in winning a world title though, and the motor is from the 1972 final of the same event. As per the last Mager bike above, it offered plenty of bang per buck as a promotional prop given its $12,000 price and world championship status. Auction description: 1988 Paraves Ecomobile. One of the truly legendary road machines of modern history, the Paraves has had more written about it than many motorcycles produced in the millions. Only 89 Paraves Ecomobiles were made between 1985 and 2005 when the new Monotracer design was released, and a further 60 Monotracers were made before Paraves closed in 2015. The brand has been rebirthed in Czechoslovakia as the Monoracer, and can now be purchased with a BMW internal combustion engine, or as an electric bike. If you want a new one, it will cost you around 5 times the cost of this one. The particular characteristic that gets the Paraves so much attention is its insane and regulated top speed. With such a minuscule frontal area due to the feet-first seating position, and the drag coefficient of a Bonneville Streamliner, it will run happily at 150 miles per hour while delivering over 50 mpg. Auction description: 1922 Ariel 67 horsepower V-twin, a 95-year-old motorcycle made by one of the iconic motorcycle marques in history, and fully restored into the bargain. This 1922 Ariel uses the 795cc Abingdon King Dick motor and was purchased at Bonham's Stafford sale in April 2003, lot 322, when it was described as a challenging yet substantially complete restoration project. Since then it has been treated to a total mechanical and cosmetic restoration and has undergone limited road testing of just a few miles. Hence, this is a brand new 95-year-old motorcycle for $18,000. Madness. Auction description: 1923 Narracar. Despite attracting the most delightfully unconventional people and producing some very unconventional trois-wheelers, the motorcycle fraternity has produced very few motorcycles as unconventional as the American Narracar. At $19,000, it's the perfect set of wheels for those who revel in their eccentricity. Auction description: 1972 Speedway World Championship engine. In 1972 Jawa Type 890 Speedway Racing Motorcycle. Another gem, another World Championship by Ivan Mager, and a price that you could pay with your credit card. That is the Kiwi legend on this bike, breasting the tape in the final. Wonderful provenance for $21,000. Auction description: 1977 Speedway World Championship Final winning 1977 Jawa DOHC 4VAV Speedway Racing Motorcycle. Another gem, another World Championship by Ivan Mager. There are many photos of him riding each of the bikes for sale in their respective auction listings, and world title generally adds significantly to a bike's price at auction. We've listed just a few of those sold on the weekend. Auction description: 1969 Speedway World Championship Final winning engine 1969 Jawa Model 890 Speedway Racing Motorcycle. The most expensive Ivan Mager bike to sell last Sunday. Auction description: 1997 Ducati 916 Senna 2A Limited Edition number 162 of 300 of the 916 Ducati with 3,411 kilometers on the odometer. Named after the late Ayrton Senna, who owned an 851 Ducati and was a friend of Ducati's owners, the Castiglione brothers, this bike was arguably worth more, and just about to begin appreciating in value. Auction description: 1991 Honda VFR 750R Type RC30. The significance of this motorcycle cannot be overstated. It was built in very low quantities so that Honda could go production racing, and each one was hand-built by Honda Racing Corporation, not the Honda factory. For several years, it won everything, including the first 2 World Superbike Championships. The bike auctioned here is a low-mileage 4,000 miles from new example and a perfect investment ready to appreciate in value from this point forth. When it was launched in 1988, an RC30 cost £8,499, double the cost of most sports bikes. Auction description: 1927 Zenith Jep 678cc model, 680 and older, restoration believed to have been done in the 1970s. The bike was replenished in every respect at that time, and the 678cc model 680 side valve Jap motor thoroughly rebuilt. The bike has only completed 300 miles since then, so apart from recommissioning, this pristine example of a famous mark is essentially new. Great value at £27,600. Auction description: 1989 Suzuki RG500 Gamma. An interesting development is the rise in prices fetched for this model. The bike is unquestionably rare and one of the great motorcycles of its day, being closer than any other motorcycle to the two-stroke 500cc Grand Prix racers of the era. It's still hard to believe this bike sold for more than an RC30 though. Auction description: 1990 Honda RS 500 Grand Prix Racer. Unlike the previous bike, which was a Grand Prix replica for the road, this bike is the real deal, being one of the customer Grand Prix bikes sold by Honda in the late 1980s that were based on the oddball Honda NS 500 used by Freddie Spencer to win the 1983 World 500cc Championship. Reliable, much easier to ride than an RG500 Suzuki or one of the other four-cylinder two-strokes, this bike offers great value at $42,000 and could equally end up decorating a man cave as going vintage racing. Auction description: 1974 Laverda 750 SFC. Laverda 750cc twin is held in high regard for its handling, speed and reliability, but it is the very limited edition SFC that built the factory's reputation. Producing just 70 horsepower, the SFC was very light, handled superbly, and was unburstable, meaning it won many production, 24-hour and endurance races in the early 70s and is particularly prized today because genuine SFCs are rare. This is such a bike, with matching numbers, so its price of under $50,000 is surprising. Auction description: 1928 BMW 736cc R63. A rare example of BMW's very first 750cc overhead VAV model in excellent condition. Auction description: 1950 Vincent 998cc Serie-esque Repeat. 1952 Vincent 998cc Repeat Serie-esque Touring Model 1977 megavolts Agusta 837cc Boxer. 1955 Vincent 998cc Black Prince. 1938 Brau Superior 982cc SS80 Blacknell Sidecar X Bill Beavers. 195,556 Norn 500cc Manx. This represents a lot of money for a Manx, but getting into the detail explains why. This bike represented the height of attainable performance when it appeared on the Norton stand at the 1955 Olympia Motorcycle Show. It was subsequently raced with success by Bill Beavers in both solo and sidecar form, and despite a long Isle of Man TT history, the frame and motor still have matching numbers. Auction description: 1929 Brau Superior SS 100 Pendine engine and replica frame. 1978 megavolts Agusta 837cc Monza. 1950 Vincent 998cc Serie-esque Black Shadow. 1950 Vincent 998cc Serie-esque Black Shadow. Price £79,900, $106, $1,541,972 megavolts Agusta 750 Price £84,380, $112,106. MV Augusta's four-cylinder bikes are kinda like gold, only more reliable as an investment. Auction description: 1912 Pierce 644cc Model 12 single. Price £89,980, $119,546. This bike is remarkable on several fronts, being a completely unmolested example of a 105-year-old American motorcycle, but it was owned by the same family for 101 years. 19,122,013. Check the images in the auction description. X Lorenzo World Championship 2007 Aprilia 250cc RSW. Price £101,180, $134,426. One of the most expensive two-stroke motorcycles ever sold at auction. There were those who thought it couldn't possibly exceed $100,000. The vendor bought this bike from Piaggio in December 2007, and the machine has been cleaned but not ridden. It was sold in as last raced condition. Auction description: 1932 Brau Superior 981cc SS80 Deluxe. Price £107,900, $143,354. No surprises here. Auction description: 1911 Pierce 688cc, for price £107,900, $143,354. The first of many famous American four-cylinder motorcycles, this bike last sold at auction during Monterey Car Week in 2012, and indicated how good and unrestored motorcycle can look given 106 years without a restoration. Auction description: 1914 Henderson Model C4, price £113,500, $150,794. It is becoming increasingly common for the top seller at an auction to be wearing a Henderson badge these days. Henderson only produced four-cylinder motorcycles during its 19-year existence, with this bike produced in the 5-year window prior to Ignaz Schwinn, owner of Excelsior, taking control in 1917. Auction description: view gallery, 43 images.